got an itch. We're live.
It did the same thing again. I know. All right. Sorry about that. See, again, that's the technology. It pops up and
when we go live, all the things start popping up on Robert's computer.
It does.
He's like,
it's a StreamYard connection. So anyways, thank you all for your patience. Welcome to another episode of the Uncensored Entrepreneurs. We've got our special guest, and he's back for a third time. So I don't know what that means. I'm assuming it's a good thing. But Mr. Ray Higdon is here with us today. Ray is not just a renowned entrepreneur, but a powerful motivator who has inspired thousands to overcome their fears and step into their purpose. Today, we're going to dive deep into his journey, some insights, and some exciting details about the upcoming event, Faith Over Fear Live. I'm so excited about this. It's coming up soon in October, so we'll be talking about that. This is going to be an action-packed episode with value, motivation, and practical tips you won't want to miss. So stay tuned, and we'll see you on the inside.
Robert, every time I see you with your little suspenders like that, I want to take you into like the Great Gatsby.
I love that. That's still a classic picture. I mean, it's not going anywhere until I have another bow tie event. So, which may be Faith Over Fear, right? We that may actually happen.
Hey,
so, Ray, thank you for
birds and bow ties.
Oh yeah, exactly.
The theme of this year's party.
So, Ray, thank you for coming back on the Uncensored Entrepreneurs. We truly appreciate it. And, we've said this before. I can't say this enough. We're going to be talking in some details about it. But your event last year, Faith Over Fear 2023, was amazing. I'm going to speak for Tina just because we've talked enough about it, that it was a huge, huge impact, not just, in the practical sense of business and being an entrepreneur, and everything else that goes along with that. But really, more than anything, it was transformational. And I feel like most of us experienced some type of a breakthrough in our life, our business, and our relationships. So I would truly appreciate that. I can't say it enough.
And it showed, like, even during the event and after the event, it showed how impactful this was, how an impactful event this was. So I would like to ask Ray, why are you doing Faith Over Fear again? Why not change up the title?
Yeah. First of all, I mean, I've come back 3 times. I keep hoping to catch Christina Whiteley.
Yeah, right. I don't know what's happening here.
Ran late or like what
she had other things. Anyway, a more important event to go to.
I'm just a big fan. I'm a big fan. And so, yeah, when it comes to this year more than last year, I think it's the number one thing that people need is faith over fear.
Yeah.
And there's so many people in fear. They're afraid of who's going to be elected. They're afraid of what the market's doing. They're afraid of inflation. They're afraid of the industry they're in. They're afraid of the company they're in. They're literally afraid of every single thing. And every single location of fear is a distrust of God. And so God put it on, like when I prayed about faith over fear, I mean, I've prayed about it many times, but when I prayed last Tuesday on it, I asked this question. I said, Father, what would make your heart happy about faith over fear? And the first thing he said was your own faith over fear. I'm like, oh man, dang, daggone, hold me out. That's what he tends to do. And but just for me to have greater faith.
Yeah.
And so it's not that some of us have reached some, supernatural level of faith, or all of us have this distrust, this, is he really going to do that? Is he really going to provide? Is he really my provider? Is he really my, comforter? Is he
Or it's
really
just
this?
a coincidence. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's, something that I think we all need to step more into faith over fear. And he gave me a very specific mission this year. Last year was very much about obedience, but I didn't understand my identity with him. And so I did the best I could, and I kind of cringe when I look back at me last year. I was just so unsure. I was in such an unsure place because, I was very sure about business, but I'm no longer that guy. And I'm very sure that I want to be closer to God. I'm very sure about that, but I'm unsure about the two. I'm
And this
unsure
was your
about,
first event that you combined the two.
well, it was my first event since coming to Christ.
Yeah.
Because I came to Christ 2 weeks after my last event in 2022. And so that event, didn't have any, faith at least. And so that was, last year was my first event, but I didn't know how to have the dichotomy of how to be someone of faith and be an entrepreneur, teach business and teach the Bible. And so over this last year, he's really helped me with that. And it's mainly from having a relationship with him, having communication with him. I pray on every major and minor decision. There's literally nothing I do, whether I, attend, respond to somebody, go somewhere. Like there's nothing I'm not praying about and adhering and obedient to whatever he's telling me to do. And his big marching order for this event is to teach how can entrepreneurs have a closer relationship with him and actually hear from him and actually get answers from him. And that is a very scary marching order because it's taken me a pretty good chunk of very focused effort to figure that out and have discernment. And I just know how other people, don't believe that they're either worthy or why would he talk to me or I can't hear him. Those are my own thoughts or that's bad pizza or whatever. And so, we're going to have to break through quite a few barriers to help people with that. But he wouldn't give me that mission without also equipping me with how to do that. And it's a scary mission, but literally if there's one thing you could wish for, right? If there's one thing that would be a connection to him, to be able to hear from him, to get wisdom from him. And I just bought in. I bought into what the Bible says. When you lack wisdom, ask will be given to you liberally and without reproach. And so if that is true, then I want some of that. And now it's teaching that.
Wow. So true. I mean, the event in itself was the perfect example of faith over fear. I mean, like you stated, for you, I remember last year at the event, you giving some testimonies around the fact of, there was a big leap of faith and you weren't sure even how many people were going to attend,
Sure.
when you first put that out. And again, I know you're not all about bragging, but I will say, let's just talk about the event last year. You ended up probably with more people than you anticipated. What was the number last year?
It was a little over 1,000.
Oh man, it felt like 3,000 because of the energy in that room. It really did. And I'll say that the entire place was packed out. There were still people even hanging out in the halls and networking and popping in and out. And but I loved it. So I'm really curious to see what happens this year. Very, very excited about it.
The other thing I loved the most about last year is that the speakers implemented their faith into their talks as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That was really important.
It really was.
To give them the green light. And several of those speakers have been forbidden from at their company events talking about their faith. And I just green light, baby. Like we want to hear it.
And it kind of brought us a little bit closer to those people. We kind of got a little bit of more insight of who they were and what they're all about. Because, you're very, very vocal on social media about your faith. but
A
a
little
lot
bit.
of people are not. And a lot of people kind of hold that piece back, probably afraid, what other people will think, or losing
Yeah.
followers or whatever. What do you think is different from last year than it is for this year for those kinds of speakers?
I mean, you're seeing more, and I don't, I struggle with this because is it that fewer people were talking about God in our industry, or is it kind of like the Suburban you buy, and all of a sudden your reticular activator notices more? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Like, it
Well,
seems to me like more speakers that I hadn't seen talk about God, or more are talking about God. But I don't know. Is that my reticular activator? Maybe they did all the whole time and I didn't notice. I don't know.
I quite honestly, I think coming out of COVID and also the economy, right, the
Yeah.
cost of everything in life, almost every entrepreneur I know has had to pivot or shift their business in some fashion. And
Yeah.
so if that means that, as far as the positive, if it means that it takes these type of drastic measures or events that happen in life to draw people closer to God, maybe that's another thing. The other thing I did want to just mention is that, I go kind of way back in the pre-social media days when it came to corporate consulting. And I was always told, it was drilled into us. In fact, I wasn't even allowed to speak or give any type of a training event if I did not hang my faith at the door, right? It was like, it was like the
Yeah.
cloak, your
It's like your faith
faith.
and your political. Don't say nothing faith or political. Faith or political. Don't put nothing.
Yeah. And I am, though, however, experiencing with both just partners and colleagues, that we are seeing more talk about that. People are starting to blend that in. I think it also has a lot to do, of course, my space is branding. So I always like talking about the fact that I think authenticity is huge, right? And so we should show and share what our faith is and some of the things that matter us, those core values that are unwavering. So,
yeah, I mean, to me, it's, ask the Lord what he wants you to do, and he's told me multiple times that I'm to be in the marketplace. And so for you to be in the marketplace, you have to serve the marketplace. You do have to add value to the marketplace. So as much as I want to talk about the Bible, as much as I want to talk about ministry, and as much as I love scripture, like I can mix it in, right? But I need to be leading with business applicable topics in my events and my videos, et cetera. And so it's really, I think it varies, per person. I think some people are called to be straight out ministry, and some marketplace, and what does that look like? I think the only common piece there is you are most likely called to help the person you used to be.
Yeah.
And so whatever you've been through, you are most likely, he allowed you to go through that valley to teach you how to help people in that valley.
Yeah.
And that's what I've noticed over and over and over and over and over. Every time he, takes me through something and I learn something, I know, okay, I'm now equipped to go help someone go through that. And so it's a never ending process. It's just never ending. I think, I think as long as you're alive, he's going to continue to try to grow you, because that would be one incredible father, wouldn't it? If you had a father that literally every week was attempting to help you grow in strength or wisdom, discernment, or equipping, anointing, or calling, like that would be a pretty darn good, father. That'd be pretty amazing.
Oh, absolutely. You know what?
How those kind of stories, help other people. With me helping everybody else, share their stories and getting it out on books. There's always that time when they're like, "Ooh, I can't," this is chapter. It's going to be hard to write. I'm like, listen, if it was just one person that you were able to help, wouldn't this all be worth it? And they always go, "Oh my God, yes." So once they get that out there, it is those stories and your stories of transformation and how you got through whatever you went through to get through that. my Be a Glow Stick Girl book. I mean, it's going crazy because of those kinds of stories of
Sure.
women's transformational, their broken glow stick moments of them transforming and how it's transforming other women's lives now too, of going through all those kind of stories. So
Yeah.
it is so important to share your story and share
Absolutely.
who you what
It's relatable, right? I mean, and, you know, that's where you see the authenticity. I'm going to just leave this one up for the rest of the show. No,
right?
but I will say I wanted to at least acknowledge this. I acknowledge everyone here that's watching. So I appreciate everyone watching live and those that watch replay later. But Lisa, I love it. She's not ashamed to put it right out there. Let's talk about Jesus, right? And I love that so much when you talked about, you know, the example of your father, Ray, when you talk about a mentor in your life and in your business, right? You know, you're putting God, you're putting Jesus at the lead of that. The other thing I just wanted to kind of slip in there is, you know, again, we're talking about faith over fear coming up here in October, but let's also talk about this because I believe that this will be instrumental in some of the things that are going to be happening here in October as well. I'm reading it for a second time.
Oh, nice.
I absolutely love this book. It's an easy read if anyone's, you know, looking to connect with some of the things that Ray's sharing and talking about, and how he's really pulled in, you know, years of his experience as a marketer, as a leader, as a coach, and aligned it with what the Bible presents to us. And so I love this, Ray. I've got a couple little things I highlighted that I'll probably bring up at some point. But let's just talk about the book in general. So you had this big transformation, you know, roughly 2 years ago. We saw that transformation. You made the big move coming into faith over fear. And then now, because you've published many other books, is this your first book that was faith based?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I am, we're in the process of working on the second, it's Faith Driven Wealth, and John Maxwell wrote the foreword. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
So we got the forward done so far, but we're working on that one.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, with John Maxwell, that's amazing. By the way, can we talk about that? Can we talk about are you already releasing and sharing who all the speakers are, keynotes?
Let me see what I could do.
Yeah, I mean, there's you know, quite a few. There's some returning speakers, a lot of new speakers. You know, so there's some familiar. I mean, if you go to I think you guys have a link.
Yep.
Whenever you guys post a link, if you go to that link, you'll see you know, some familiar faces, right? You know, we have, you know, Donna Johnson and her husband, who was with us, you know, last year. We have Sarah Robbins, who was with us last year. We have Tina Joy Carroll. And so several people that were with us last year, and we have some really cool additions. We have, you know, one of them, my friend Amy Lacey. This is probably someone most people don't know, but she is the creator of the first cauliflower crust pizza. And she sold that for 8 figures. She's since built, you know, another company, but her story of faith is just extremely powerful. It's really, really powerful. We have many people on here I would assume would know our friend Rob Speary. So Rob Speary is going to be as well. Pastor Donnie. So for those that don't know, Pastor Donnie, he is the lead pastor of a very large church in I think Boca Raton, I believe. Very large congregation. Young man with just filled with wisdom. He's going to be there. And you can see we've uploaded most of the speakers. There's a few.
Okay. So the ones I'm seeing now in there, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so just some awesome individuals for sure.
Well, Ray, you definitely have some exciting guests that are going to be speaking. And I know that you mentioned last year they integrated, you know, faith into their conversations and their messaging. And I remember speaking with you last year, and you were a little concerned about how you were going to run this event compared to in the past, and how you were going to integrate faith and speaking about the Bible. So how will this year be different? and your confidence level around integrating those things, and maybe even having specific types of events happening at your event or conversations that you weren't comfortable doing last year?
Yeah. So, I think that the two, maybe three biggest things that are different than last year. One, God gave me a new identity, and my identity up until like February of this year was based on what have I done, what am I doing, what have I accomplished, and that's the identity of most people, right? A lot of people, and so the end of every day, I would run this little checker in my head of what did I do, what did I come, what didn't I do, and I would find the reason to beat myself up. So literally, it was a bully to myself for decades and decades and decades. And he gave me a new identity. And my identity is I'm a bold, loving, authentic man of God. That's who I am. That's what I may do things, I may have things, I may accomplish things, but that's who I am. So I don't need anything outside of that to know who I am. Back then, it was very different scenario. Two, I now fully understand and integrate Bible and business, faith and finances, God and money. And so I just see the integration of them, and the integration requires a relationship with Him. So this isn't I'm gonna work Monday through Friday and visit Him on Sunday. It's I had the opportunity to meet David Green, and he's the founder of Hobby Lobby. As a kid, he dreamed of being a dime store manager. Instead, he launched Hobby Lobby with 45,000 employees, 1,055 stores. They do $8 billion a year, and
$1 billion of that is probably from me.
yeah. And they donate 50% of profits. So this year, they say he's going to give away $750 million. Wow. And so I got the chance to have a personal conversation with him and chat with him, and he had a very close relationship with his mother, and he really liked it when I shared about my mom and bringing her to Christ. And I heard him say, my life changed when I started praying about every major decision and every minor decision. And so I just took that on. Maybe, I don't know, 6 months ago, 5 months ago, something like that. And so that's very, different, and so, Solomon said, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. And so fear of the Lord isn't that you're afraid, like, oh no, it's desiring His presence in all things, in all walks, in everything. So are you considering His presence when you're walking into a meeting, when you're doing a podcast, when you're eating, when you're doing anything, right? And just the honoring, the revering, the desiring of His presence. And and we, today's I read Proverbs every day, right? And Proverbs 29:25 says, the fear of man is a snare, but trust in the Lord and you'll be safe. Okay. Most people have the desire to be adored by men, right? Or women, right? They have the desire to be adored and celebrated, acknowledged, accepted, approved of by other people. And that is, that's a snare, right? The Apostle Paul said, we can't be people pleasers and servants of Christ. And so it's, when you really have a relationship with Him and you're asking Him questions, should I do this? Should I do that? And one day He had me drop 5 projects. He's like, you'll be doing those, drop those 5. I'm like, oh man, that's going to be tough. Like, these people are going to be mad. They're going to be pissed. They've invested time and whatever. And went super smooth. And most of the things that He's called me to do that were uncomfortable, I didn't want to do, but when I did them, there was a reward. Mm-hmm. There was some kind of gain. There was some kind of breakthrough. There was some kind of benefit that I never would have seen. And it's just been an incredible ride. And so these are things I just didn't have access to last year. And just, growing, with Him, learning to communicate, learning, and just, this Tuesday, He put a different question on me. And that was, Lord, do I trust you? Do I trust you to provide for me? Do I trust you to heal me? Do I trust you in my marriage? Do I trust you? And the answers were all no. And I did. And this is kind of like his, feedback on my own faith over fear, right? And so I know that he is such a good father. Whatever we ask for in Jesus' name, he will give us. And so I ask him, Father, will you help me with that? Will you help me trust you more? Will you help me to lean on you more? Will you help me to trust you more? And this is the father that said to Jesus, I believe, help my unbelief. It's a great prayer. I believe, help my unbelief, right? Because we all have pieces of fear. We all have pieces of distrust, or, we want to be with him, but we have so many worldly examples of it not working out, of it not being great. And so just the acceleration path he's had me on since the last Faith Over Fear is astounding. And so it's going to be just extremely different from last year. Same kind of themes, but my desire is for every person that attends walks out knowing they can ask him questions, they can hear from him, they can discern his voice. He said that my sheep will know my voice. I just believe the word of God. And so we just have to get ourselves out of the way. Isaiah 59:1-2 says, it's not that my arm is so short that I can't reach you. It's that your iniquities keep you from hearing me. And so, my goal is, and I'm not going to do it by myself. He's going to help the entire, I believe his presence is going to be all over this event. And my desire is for every person to walk out of that atmosphere equipped and having a relationship with him, hearing from him, knowing they're hearing from him, that will serve them the rest of their life.
Wow.
Very profound.
And that is our episode for today. We will see you guys next.
Did everyone know they were coming to church today? I mean,
Right.
that is amazing. And I think about this all the time. We always get so filled into our heads with the things that we can and cannot do, and we're always typically trying to focus and work on mindset and breakthrough. But when you can unpack that, when you can unpack some of that stuff, it doesn't mean that you still don't have those hurdles and challenges. But when you can unpack it and put it at the foot of the cross, wow! I mean, with your example, it takes such a heavy burden off of you. It doesn't mean that there still isn't work to do. It doesn't mean that you still don't have to put in the effort of taking action and making things happen. But wow,
because he wants to bless the work of your hands.
Yes.
And so one of the speakers at our event, Dion, he's one of my mentors. He's for those that are in ministry following, he's Graham Cook's partner. And so he uses an example. He says, some people are like this, in that they do a lot of work here, and they visit them every once in a while on Sunday, right?
Oh, wow.
Some people are like this. They don't do much here. They seem to be in prayer all the time. Okay? Neither of those are ideal. Okay. Jesus was a square, right? He only did what he saw the Father do, right? And so he, was in prayer all the time. Early in the morning he left for prayer. Late at night he was at prayer. He was the one praying more than everybody else, and he's the Son of God, right? And so how do we go upstairs into the kingdom? How do we step into the kingdom, communicate with him, and then go be bold downstairs and go execute downstairs? So Dion says, upstairs permission leads to bold action downstairs. So if I know that he's called me to do a thing, I'm going to go do the heck out of that thing. And then he's going to bless the work of my hands, right? So I do have to work. It's not like, Lord, I wish you'd do the work and bring me a result. Most people are praying for results, which is that's a result from the work of your hands that he would bless if you did the work. And so we are to have a diligent hand. Proverbs talks all about that. And so we are called to do the work. We're called, he who doesn't till his own land ends up hungry. And, and so like we are called to do the work. But if you have permission, if he's telling me, hey, green light, go do this, let's go. And that's what we're going to go do, because he's covering it.
Wow.
Ray, one of the things that you had talked about, you mentioned money, wealth, as well as faith. And we see a lot of entrepreneurs afraid of making money for fear of being greedy, or they feel that they're not supposed to make a certain amount of income. Can we tap into that a little bit? And can you share your thoughts around that? I think
Yeah.
some people are held back from success, whether they're telling themselves a story around that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those extremely successful lies of the devil, that you having any kind of money is evil, bad, greedy, selfish. That's terrible. How dare you? Why would the Bible say the Lord has prosperity? The Lord delights in the prosperity of his servant. Why would Deuteronomy 8:18 point out and say, remember the Lord your God who gives you the power to get wealth? Why would that, he doesn't say the power to commit adultery. He doesn't say the power to punch someone in the face, right? He says the power to get wealth. Like, why is that edified if that's a terrible thing? Luke 16:9 says, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourself so that when it's gone, you'll be welcomed into eternal dwellings. And so why is it where there is this weirdness? And so there is a warning there, right? And I think that's, I think it's in Luke 16. I'm not positive though, where it says, you can't love God and money. You'll either despise the one, and love the other, or vice versa. And so we're not to love money. We're not to adore or worship money. We're not to treat money like source, which some people do. Some people, if they got a lot of money, they want more, of course. If they don't have money, they're very sad. So their emotional stability is based on what's in the bank. So that is a form of idolatry. That is source, right? If it is the source of my safety, security, significance, status, identity, then that's a problem, right? It's okay for us to have money. We don't want to have money have you, right? And that's the distinction. And so the devil would absolutely hate it if there were more David Greens in the world that give away $750 million a year. He would absolutely hate it if all of a sudden we were prosperous and could fund orphanages and could fund research and could fund water wells and go and solve all kinds of problems. And so the devil would hate that. So the devil loves it when people go around labeling things, prosperity gospel, like it was the poverty gospel. Yeah. Your poverty doesn't serve anybody. And if you just want enough money for you and your family, that's quite selfish.
Wow.
You
cannot serve with very little, right? Yeah. So, I mean, in that fashion, I'm not saying that you can't, give of self and equity and sure. things of that nature, but God's word and that mission in life to bring people closer to Christ, it happens with wealth. I mean, wealth moves that needle fast. Yeah. And I think that's amazing, but you're right. I think most of us, like you said, Star, in the beginning, and Ray, most of us have been programmed at an earlier stage in life that
money is the root of all evil.
Root of all evil, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, one that messes, people that have been, spiritually assaulted with thinking just having money is bad. They really struggle with Ecclesiastes 9:16 that says the poor man's wisdom is despised, his words are not heard.
Ooh.
They really struggle with that one.
Well, they overlook that verse often, don't they?
Yeah, and there's a difference in that in the context of the Bible, rich and poor they have different meanings depending on the context.
Right.
Okay? Because sometimes rich isn't that you have a lot of money; it's that you think you don't need anything else.
Right.
And vice versa. Like I had money, but I was poor because something was lacking and I didn't know what it was. I did not think I was self-sustained, that I'm good, I'm full, I'm complete, I'm fulfilled. I wasn't. I was poor in that I was hungry. I had money, but I was hungry for something that this stuff ain't getting me. Yeah. And so that would be a very commonly in the New Testament, that would be poor, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's a difference there of, are you materially rich, spiritually poor, meaning you need a connection to God, because I believe we're all hardwired to crave a connection with the Father, but we try to fill it with everything else. We try to fill it with gambling or drugs or sex or influence or podcasts or whatever, right? We try to
things that
find
become our
anything
God, right?
Yeah.
God. And so we are Gomer in the book of Hosea. We're trying every which way but God. And that's where most people, they'll try ayahuasca, they'll try this, they'll try that, they'll try this. And what they're really searching for, like the hippies and Jesus Revolution, is they're searching for true love. They're searching for a connection to the Heavenly Father, and that's the only place you can find it. Not in drugs, not in anything else.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm not going to bring up politics on the show, but I will say this, that, there's this division where we're all being programmed at different levels, right? Those that have little, many are being programmed in the fashion that others have to provide and they can't provide for self. And then of course, then there's that kind of middle class that we're right now being programmed that, being content. You mentioned that, Ray, that just being content is good enough. Like, why, if we have a roof over our head and we have these things and I still am able to have a meal every day, why should I want more? And it isn't really about wanting more in the selfishness of having more things, but to be able to, again, take that wealth and share and transform other people's lives with that wealth. So, yeah, we're being programmed at every single level. It's amazing.
For sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
On a business note, Ray, we know that so much has shifted. And I think it was Tina that mentioned a lot of people are pivoting over the past year, 2 years now. What have you seen in terms of the marketplace? Do you have any tips and recommendations when it comes to marketing and lead generation that are working right now?
Yeah. There's really two major, classes, I guess. I don't know. There's kind of two major divisions. There are the people that are so confused and distracted and they're focused on what company went affiliate today and BDAs and all this, everything but production. And so that's the majority. Then there are people that have their head down and are focused on who can I help today. And you can't do both. You can't be tied up in what's going to happen with the election, what's going to happen with inflation. Is my company going to shut down? Is it going to go affiliate? Who got a BDA? You can't do that and do this over here. You're doing one or the other. One leads to certain diminishment. The other leads to growth. And so, there's several, verses on this. Keep your eyes forward. Don't turn to the left or right. Keep your foot from evil. When you start comparing yourself to others or you start looking at what's wrong, you are stepping away from your anointing. And that's 2 Samuel 11:1 says, at the time of the year when kings went out to battle, David stayed home. The very next verse is Bathsheba, him having Uriah killed, right? And he went the wrong way. So when we aren't walking in our anointing and we aren't going toward where God wants us to, we are most likely putting our foot in evil. We're most likely putting our foot in laziness, in slander, in judgment, in less than. We most certainly aren't walking in the new creation. And, we are to walk in the new creation. 2 Corinthians 5:17, those of you who are with Christ, you are a new creation. The old has passed away. The old is gone. And so stop trying to fix the old person. Stop trying to figure out what's wrong with you. And instead walk in that new creation with boldness. And, Paul talks about, Jesus says to Paul, he says, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in your weakness. It's okay for you to walk in an area that you don't feel comfortable with, knowing that you have the creator of the heavens and the earth with you, right? And so if this is why communication and relationship with God is so important, is if oh, he wants me to start a school. I don't know how to do a school. He wants me to start a podcast. I don't know how to start a podcast, right? If he's calling you to do it, then that will lead to bold action downstairs because he's with you, he's covering that, and he's going to help you out with that. He's going to bring people to you. I had, and God is just so good and just so amazing. I've had multiple people say this type of thing to me, but, the other day I was talking with Dion again, one of our speakers for Faith Over Fear. And he said, he goes, Ray, I just want to let you know, God's told me that to have your back and to treat you like an old friend, and that I'm here. However I can help you, I'm here. And this guy, I mean, he's ran 9,000 person events. There is no one in Christian music or ministry he hasn't had speak at one of his events. Not one. Wow. And, and so like, to have, and I only met him a couple months ago, right? We met in person one time.
It made you feel like good because of God.
Yeah. I'm like, thank you, God.
Yeah.
Thank you. That, that he would send me such a honed wisdom warrior, and he's got my back. I mean, I know God's got my back, but now he's sending me people. Like, that's amazing. And so when God's calling you to do something that's uncomfortable, he's going to send you resources. In my prayer, I actually have it. When I prayed about the event, one of the things that I got in prayer was, I have sent you speakers and advisors, listen to them. And here's the board you're to form. And he gave me 3 names. And I texted them, all 3 very busy people, very influential. All 3 I prayed about it, got a yes. Now they're on the board. And so he will, if he's calling you to do something that's uncomfortable, that's a good sign. And your obedience, that's up to you.
Wow.
I'll tell you a fun story, a very uncomfortable story for me when it went down, at least. So when I meet with clients, they've kind of figured out that I pray a lot, and sometimes God will just be so good, and he'll tell me, hey, they can ask you any question, right? How cool is that? And so I get on with my client, and this client, she's amazing. She's incredible. I'm so honored to coach her. And so I had asked her if she wanted to continue our coaching. She said, absolutely. And I said, okay, and I said, okay, well, I'll grandfather you in at the old price, and so I, she said, send me the invoice. I'm like, okay. So it's been 2 weeks and she hadn't paid the invoice. Right. And I'd prayed on it, like, am I supposed to remind her? No. Okay. and so we get on our session and she goes, Ray, I think the Lord wants you to tell me something. And I'm like, okay. So I pray.
You got your calculator out? No, just kidding. Yeah.
So I pray and I tell her to pay the invoice. I'm like, oh man. No, dude. No, don't do that, man.
I don't want to talk about money.
Don't do that to me. Because I just know how it looks. Oh,
yeah.
Right.
Oh, I
God told you to pay you.
God told me you got to pay your invoice because you haven't paid it yet.
Yeah.
That's my
and so I already know how her reaction is going to be, but I'm over here praying over and over and over. Come on, is there anything else? Tell her to pay the invoice. I'm like, oh man. Well, God says to pay the invoice, and she goes, oh, right. I knew that would be the reaction.
That was the response you were anticipating. Right?
I knew that'd be the reaction. That was the reaction. And then God hit me with, delayed obedience is still disobedience. And there's places in your life you haven't been obedient. And she just lost it. And she was like, oh man, I can't believe you just said that. Oh man. So see, he'll have you do something like that, with the left jab, and then it comes the right hook. Right. And so it's to off balance you. And I remember the time, I talk about it in the book. But when we're in Israel, and the whole time I'm like, oh, he's working on Jess's faith. She needs to faith it up. And then
I just listened to your guys' live yesterday this morning.
And then when we're on the plane, he reveals to me, I was working on you, dude. And I'm like, wow.
You're like, hold on, let me get
and
that.
So I was so off balance because I was so sure what he was doing, right? And then he revealed it to me. I was working on you, dude. And it just rocked my world. I just started bawling, and that's
but did you tell
how he rolls. What's that?
I said, did you tell Jessica that?
Oh yeah, she's heard this. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Now he may have been. He didn't tell me he wasn't working on her, but he told me he was working on me. So I
right.
He was working on her too.
Usually it's in parallel, right?
Yeah.
But the message isn't that you're praying just for all of these all of these people. That prayer for them is an act of, self-reflection, right? Things that you have to do in your life. And that is so true. I find that quite often, not intentional, but I pick and choose, right? I pray to God and I ask God, what area should I be focusing on today? And what things should I be doing? Where's my priorities in life and business? And he lays it all out. I hear the message, nice. And then I pick and choose, right? Sometimes, as you just said, you don't want to sit there and go, I need to ask about this. I need to,
I do a forever decision. And here's a funny story that popped up. So when we were in, in June and July, we escaped to, the Carolinas, right? Usually North Carolina, but we also visited Robert in Greenville. And so my son badly needs a haircut. I mean, he's just looking like a mop. I mean, it's just crazy. And so I'm looking at the time, it's a little tight, and I pray, I'm like, God, do I have time to go take him to the barbershop? That's how, I'm telling you, y'all underestimate how much I ask.
You pray for everything. Okay.
Everything. There's nothing, everything I eat. I mean, I've been in restaurants where I got, don't drink that water. I'm like, okay, not going to drink it.
Oh, I think we should all hear that message more.
Yeah. And so I pray, I'm like, it's a little tight. God, should I take him and get a haircut? Yes. Okay. And I'm like, man, it's really tight. Like, we got to be at this other thing. Like, this is going to be tight. And so I get in the car. As soon as we get in the car, Graham, my son, he goes, do I get a lollipop? I'm like, yeah, you'll get a lollipop. You'll get a lollipop.
That matters.
And so we go, and it's like 20 minutes away. I'm like, there's no way we're going to get his haircut and get back in time. Like, there's literally no way. Like, Lord, you wanted me? Yes. I go into the barbershop. They look at me like I'm crazy. And they're like, did you make an appointment? I'm like, no. And they're like, we don't have time to cut his hair today.
But God told me. No,
I'm like, okay.
I haven't heard about it yet.
And Graham goes, lollipop. And so I prayed. I said, God, did you just want me to get him a lollipop? Yes.
Wow.
Well, Ray, you do realize the mops are in style right now, right? The young boy.
He approved that trip so that Graham would get a lollipop.
Wow. And you know what? It taught you a lot about patience.
Yeah.
And even
trusting in the Lord.
Yeah, even a little bit of anger, right? Because I know that if I came in there and I drove 20 minutes and they told me no, it kind of festers up inside you. So wow, that's amazing. There's so many lessons in that.
And Graham was just content.
He's like, he loved it.
Lollipop, 20 minutes back home, I got my lollipop.
So Ray, you mentioned the book again. And so for those that are just kind of coming in, Ray's first book on faith-based book, taking his experience as a leader, as a coach in the network marketing space. You said you have a couple other books in the works, or at least one in the work, right? I'm sure it'll be a series. But this one's the faith-driven network marketer. And I will say this, at any level of business, whether you're, in the executive space or, brick and mortar, this is a great book for anyone, even if you aren't a network marketer. One of the things I wanted to bring up, something it was calling to me as I was reading, this through the second time the other day. And there's this one, it's all good, but there's one chapter particularly that really, I just kind of got hung up on, and I couldn't get past it because I read it a couple times, and it made me feel as though I was, lacking in a certain measure that God has called me to do. And then the other one was now it resonates with me. Right. And so in this chapter on humility, I just wanted to kind of bring that up, and I wanted to see how it reflects on you and your transformation in business, and really just over the last few years, because I know, and going back many, many years ago, right, you were in the spotlight. I mean, you still are, but you were in the spotlight when it came to, making money and showing up and expecting to be at a certain level in business. and hitting those goals, right? But this one particular thing, so I hope it resonates with a few people. It says humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking of yourself less. And I'm going to say that again. It's not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking of yourself less. And the story that I'll just kind of slip in here real quick is when you're talking, John Maxwell shared a story with you in regards to humility. And I won't read it all, but long story short, it basically says that when John was a 20-ish-year-old pastor and was getting all kinds of praise on how awesome he was, his mentor pulled him aside and gave him some wisdom and said, "John, you aren't awesome. In fact, you're only slightly ahead of being stupid. But the gifts that God gave you are awesome. And if you remember that, you will do great."
Yeah.
I'm telling you, this really stuck
Can you
with me.
imagine your mentor now telling you something like that?
Well, but here's the thing, right? Like, I think, and I don't want to speak for everyone out there, but if you could kind of expand on this, as a person that has been an entrepreneur for over 20 years, right? In fact, 26 years, I've been an entrepreneur, and especially as we migrated into the online space, it's all about content. It's being out there. It's being on the spot, in the spotlight. And that's a hard pill to swallow, because sometimes, we have to put that ego. Well, not sometimes. We always have to put the ego aside. And could you expand a little bit more on this? Because I feel like we all need to hear a message of humility.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like, if you break that down, it's not thinking less of yourself, thinking of yourself less, right? So for you to think poorly of yourself is a disrespect to the cross. It's sacrilege. He paid full price for you. Every soul is valuable. And so for you to say, "Oh, I'm just worthless. I'm just a piece of crap. I'm just no good," that is extremely disrespectful to his sacrifice. That's number one. Number two, and Apostle Paul says this, somewhere. It's why would I boast? Why would I boast about the things that I have? Right? Does the clay pot boast about its handles? Right? The potter made the pot, right? So every gift that you have, God gave you. So why would you boast, right? Why do we get so filled with leaven, right? Why are we so prideful? Mm-hmm. I think an amazing example is you look at Joseph, right? So Joseph was a Hebrew slave, sold by his brothers, worked for a pagan master, was thrown into prison. He helps the cupbearer, begs the cupbearer, "Please don't forget me. Don't forget me." Cupbearer forgets him. He rots in prison 2 more years. Then he finally gets his shot. He gets his shot in front of, at the time, the most powerful man in the world, the Pharaoh. Mm-hmm. And the Pharaoh says, "I hear that you can interpret dreams." So here's his shot. And he says, "Well, I can't, but my God can."
Wow.
Which flies in the face of that Pharaoh's God, right? Like, he's got birds and whatever else, right? By the way, all the plagues were jabs at their gods.
Mm-hmm. Each one of them. Yeah.
Egyptian thing. And so it's, like it's like, so I'll have people say, and I'm very grateful for this. I really am, because I've learned, to, accept that and honor that. But I know it's not me. People will say, "You've only been with Christ 20 months. You know all this scripture. Like, how did you got a really good memory or something?" Well, anything I have, I got from God, period. And, and I spend a lot of time in the Word. I spend a lot of time sharing the Word. So anybody's going to learn it better. And your capacity to learn was a gift from God, period, anyway. And so, and it's when if you are looking at yourself more, you're breaking what Jesus talked about. Jesus said, if you want to be first, you got to make yourself last. Well, we always put ourselves first, but we're going to put ourselves last because we're serving others. It's not that we just leave ourselves last we suck, right? No, it's to put ourselves last so that we can look forward, right? Jesus said, those who put their hand to the plow and look behind them aren't a fit for the kingdom. Now, that doesn't mean you ain't making it into heaven if you don't, serve others, right? That's not biblical. But it does mean you're not communicating with the Lord if you are still focused on beating up the old person that you used to be, or the things you've been through and all that stuff. That would be double-minded, which James 1:5-8 talks about.
Wow. So true. I know we're running, close to being out of time.
Can we have him answer this question?
Yeah, I was just gonna do that. So, can we expand on that, because that's very important.
So many,
Yeah.
I mean, numerous times in our life. If you're,
of course, yeah.
God,
and the devil wants you believing that you can't hear from God. The devil would love that. So the devil loves doubt. And so I actually just mentioned it, but if you read James 1:5-8, right, it says, when you lack wisdom, ask, will be given to you liberally and without reproach. But when you ask, do not doubt. For if you doubt, you're like the sailor tossed and turned by the waves of the sea. You're double-minded in all your ways, and you do not expect a reply from the Lord. Goodness gracious. Right? And so you, like anything, okay? So I remember, you guys know, how do you say his name? Jocko Wikilink, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Military dude, big jaw, right?
Yeah.
And someone posted on Twitter, he's like, Jocko, hey, I'm trying to get good at push-ups. Well, I'm trying to get better at pull-ups. What do you suggest? And his response, pull-ups.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So if you want to get better at hearing from God, ask him. So my very first sermon, so I'm 3 months in with Christ. I'm speaking at an event at Costa Mesa. I talk about this in the book. I'm in Costa Mesa, California. And I'd been hired by Colton and Priscilla Atrave. Colton was one of our speakers last year. His wife's one of our speakers this year. Yeah. And Colton had asked me, he goes, hey man, will you give your testimonial at the worship service on Sunday? I'm like, of course. Yeah, sure. And then someone comes along on Saturday and they're like, hey, I look forward to your sermon. I'm like, sermon? And I've been with Christ 3 months. I didn't grow up.
You're giving the sermon.
I don't know anything. In fact,
he was giving the testimony.
And then another person comes and says, let me know if you need help with your altar call. I'm like, altar call? I've never seen.
I don't even know what the altar is.
I don't know what an altar call is. I mean, I've heard of the concept, but I've never actually seen one because I didn't respond to an altar call. I had a more in-person kind of, experience. Yeah. And so that night I Google altar call.
How does
one do an altar call? And so I'm serious. I Googled it, all right, the day before. This is who ran the service. And so, but there had been a girl, and when she came to me on Friday night, and she's like, well, how do I even know there is a God? And I could tell she's asking it genuinely. And she's like, how do I know there's even a God? And so I'm trying to, do logical kind of stuff. And I tell her to ask for a sign. I'm like, just ask for a sign. And she's like, okay. And so the next morning she comes up to me, Saturday morning, and she said, well, this is kind of weird, but right. She was in the Uber, and when she went to get out of the Uber driver said, hey, I'm supposed to give you this, and handed her a prayer card. Okay. Wow. But I could tell she wasn't convinced. Ask for another sign.
Yeah.
So Sunday morning, I do the worship service. I do an altar call. I don't know what I'm doing, but God works anyway, right? Mm-hmm. 20 people come to Christ. So wow. 20 people come up on stage, and we're hugging them. We're celebrating them. There's tears. She came up and she said, she goes, can I show you something? I'm like, sure. And so she holds out her hand, and she's got a crumpled up $5 bill. And she said, you remember how you told me to ask for a sign? Yes. And she said, well, I said, God, if you're real, I want to find something more than a $5 bill on the ground. And she had just found this $5 bill. And when you unwrapped it, there was a 20 inside.
Wow.
How cool is that?
Wow.
And so when, I actually talked about this last night. I'll read quickly the two quotes here. Tozer has a couple quotes, A.W. Tozer, that I think are helpful for people to hear because it challenges you. Let me, 1 second, almost there. Okay, so Tozer says, the one who does not expect God to speak will discount every single time when God does speak. Number 2, most Christians don't hear God's voice because we've already decided we aren't going to do what he says.
Woo.
And so you you have to first, right? The death and life is in the power of the tongue, right? You have to first say, I'm so grateful I hear from God. You got to believe the word, that his arm isn't too short to reach you, that if you lack wisdom, you can ask and he'll give it to you liberally and without reproach. So you first got to buy into that. And then it may take you, like Jocko said, it may take you doing some pull-ups. It may take you some time. For me, it definitely took some time for me to know, but there were too many things that I would ask. I would have someone, I just yesterday I spoke in Palm Beach, and this guy was asking me, he's like, he goes, hey man, I'm with this girl and I need to break it off because it's just not working out. And I prayed about him and I said, well, up until now, you've had an agreement that it'll never work out. And I would encourage you. And so you've probably, I don't know this person. And I said, so probably you've had success in a lot of different things, but you never stuck with anything because you had this agreement in your head that it wasn't going to work out. So you would leave early. And so I would, now that that's broken off of you, God has removed that, I would just encourage you to maybe reevaluate. And so I don't hear from him. I don't hear back from him till this morning. And he's like, dude, you just blew my mind because you just described my entire life. And I don't know him. I can't describe his entire life. It's just sometimes God will give me that nudge and he'll give you that nudge too. And there's been times in your life where he did give you that nudge. Do you remember it? All throughout the Bible, when Joshua crossed the Jordan, it's like set up 12 stones. So y'all remember, because y'all tend to forget. We tend to forget when God works in our lives. We tend to forget when he rescues us. We tend to forget when he talks to us, when he nudges us, when he tells us that this is the person, that's the love of our life. We forget these things. Yeah. And so he's been talking to you your whole life. It's just you haven't been doing it on purpose. You haven't been seeking it. I seek it and teach it how to do that on purpose, how to do it in every area of your life, not just, pray to him on Sundays.
Right. Wow. That is amazing.
You heard from Pastor Ray here first.
I'm right.
You heard it from Pastor Ray here first.
That's right.
So what you're basically saying is, going back to that coaching experience, you're a 2-for-1 special, right? So if someone hires you as a coach, you're getting much more than just Ray Higdon.
Well, so. I mean, my real goal of now everything that I do is to help you have a better relationship with him. Yeah. Not for you to worship me or you to think
absolutely
I'm amazing or something, but like for you to understand that the Holy Spirit was sent here to be your guide, your mentor.
And it goes back to that humility again, right? Because I don't want to speak for you, but I just know early on in my years of business, when I had a really good year or someone, praised me for some type of a breakthrough or experience, I took all the credit for that, right?
Yeah.
And but again, it's an entire shift. It's a soul set shift, and to God be the glory in all things. So I love this so much. We could talk forever. Are we going to go into round 2, another hour? Can we push it?
Well, we are literally 60 days away from Faith Over Fear.
Right. So
Christina's hopping on soon.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll wait.
Yeah, that's right. So again, I know we went down many different paths, but really they all align towards the same exact goal in life. It's having a closer walk with Christ, both in life and business. They do not need to be separate. It's one and the same. And so I love having this time with you, Ray. As always, every time we get off, by the way, we're always like, wow, there's so much reflection on things that we need to do more in our life and in business. And I know that you have those same exact feelings and conversations with God
there's
daily.
No condemnation, but we can learn and improve.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely. So again, we had Ray Higdon on today. Faith Over Fear Live. If you look in the body of the podcast across social media, we actually have a little bit of information in there, a link so that you can actually tap in and get tickets to the event in Orlando. It was an amazing event last year. Also, feel free to just kind of explore some of the things that are out there. Faith Over Fear Live across all of social media. You can also find it attached to just about anything that Ray Higdon has going on social media as well. And we truly appreciate it. Is there anything else that you want to close with as we sign off?
Yeah, I mean, I just know, of all the things that I've learned from a lot of secular leaders, trainers, mentors, coaches, and I've learned some great things. I'm very grateful for it. I don't believe there's anything that even comes 1/1,000,000th of learning, and that is learn to have a better relationship with God. He wants it. He wants you to communicate with him. He wants to talk to you. He wants you to become dependent on him. We tend to become dependent on everything but him, other people, money, fame, whatever. But he wants you dependent on him. And the world wants you independent. He wants you dependent on him. And so, I'm honored that he's called me to help execute this and help be his agent of helping more people, connect with him. And just grateful. And if if you aren't sure about the event, get the book, read the book, and if you don't like the book, then you probably won't like the event either. But if you like the book, you'll probably want to come.
Highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ray, for your time. I know
Yeah.
you're a busy person, but this has been amazing. Again, follow, like, and share the Uncensored Entrepreneurs across social media as well. And we look forward to Faith Over Fear here very soon. Like you said, less than 60 days. Yes. Everyone have a wonderful day. We'll see you next week, Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as always.
Bye, guys.